Hello, everybody, and welcome to HCA's Pop Council. This is a show where we cover everything in pop culture. I'm Wendy, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Jami Philbrick. Hi, Jami. How are you today?
Hey, Wendy. Good. How are you?
Good. Happy. I feel like today is Happy Superhero Day. It's just all things superhero on today's show. So excited to talk to all of you hanging out with us today to talk about Wittrock playing Guy Gardner. I actually never saw this coming, so I can't wait to dive into this. We got to talk about Invincible, the season finale, and of course, the announcement for season 2 and 3. Disneyland has officially reopened, and of course, that Marvel Phase 4 teaser video that they released at wee hours it was like dawn, and it was like, good morning, Marvel news. So, of course, you guys, welcome to the show. And we cannot call ourselves a proper pop council without a third member. So please help me welcome our good friend, Eric Eisenberg. Hi, Eric.
Howdy, howdy. How's it going?
Good, thanks. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. As you can see, I am a complete geek in every single way. You both know me. You both know this. So, yeah, and the fact that the lineup of conversation that we have today should be exciting. So it's going to be fun.
Super fantastic. And you know what's cool is I've seen you, but I've never seen you in this setting, where you're showing off your home. So is it all comics books that are behind you? I see the lantern, obviously, and the shield. And the hammer.
Well, I will say I'm not, it kind of looks a bit Marvel heavy, but yeah, my DC books are down kind of below here. But yeah, these are all my Marvel omnibuses. I'm an obsessive collector, and I love the idea of having an entire archive of Marvel Comics history. Of course, what you see here represents maybe 2% of everything Marvel has produced over the decades. But I love just being able to, I'm obsessed with physical media, and I love being able to just pick up a book and just traveling into these worlds. I think there's nothing like it.
100%. Yeah, it's I feel like we're getting a sneak peek into a comic book museum.
There you go.
It looks so organized.
And I love the Green Lantern, man.
I have referred to my apartment as the entertainment seed vault. It's basically if the world ends and everybody still needs entertainment, at the very least you'll be able to find stuff here. So
we got an Eric's room. I love the Green Lantern.
I know. It's huge. It's imagine just walk into your house and that's your centerpiece.
There you go. And
right there. Conversation starter.
Ah!
If you don't have the ring, you can't enter.
Exactly.
You're sorry,
yes.
gotta go. Yeah. Can you say the phrase? And if you can't, you don't pass the bike check and you can't enter.
Yeah.
So Eric, for our viewers who may be meeting you for the first time, please let them know a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Sure. I have been at Cinema Blend as an editor for now, I guess, 11 years. It's going to be this June. I, as you can see, am a complete obsessive over comics. I have loved film my entire life. I decided I wanted to be a film critic when I was in 7th grade and have never looked back. In addition, I love movies. I mean, seriously, there's not a single kind of movie that I don't like or can be convinced to at least check out. The entire cinematic experience is what I live for, and the fact that I get to do it for a living is a dream.
Amazing. We love that, and I love that HCA just had our own little intimate virtual brunch. So it was a nice get together to kind of see everybody again after not seeing some of the faces for over a year, which is great.
Right.
But you guys, I can't take my eyes off the lantern. So I think that's the first piece of news we have to jump into. So it's been announced that Wittrock has been cast to star as Guy Gardner in the upcoming HBO series centered around the Green Lantern. First of all, I don't recall hearing about the news that HBO was doing a Green Lantern series. So that in itself was a surprise. The second surprise for me, let's be totally honest here, was that it's no other than Guy Gardner. If you guys know DC Comics and if you know the Lanterns, I just thought that was a very interesting choice. I feel like people were maybe thinking of a Hal Jordan or Jon Stewart. Granted, Jon Stewart, maybe they want that to exist just in the movies. I don't know. And also, if you hear a lawn blower, this happens every Monday on the clock. I can't get them to stop. So throwing it to you guys, what was your reaction for, let's go with Eric.
Well, I will say, it does feel like starting out with Guy Gardner when you're making a Green Lantern Corps show feels almost like trolling, because like Guy Gardner's a jerk. I don't know if I can swear. Can I swear in this show?
Yes, you can.
Yeah. Okay, Guy Gardner's an asshole. Like, he just is a real kind of a dick, and like, no, the DC characters in the DC universe don't like him, and it's weird to have this whole fan experience, because obviously, like, over the years, there has been so much petitioning for Jon Stewart, who, of course, all of a huge generation of fans fell in love with from Phil Lamar's voice performance on the animated shows. But so there's like this building of like anticipation for a live action Jon Stewart, and they say, nah, Guy Gardner, here you go. And we're all just like, okay. And it's nothing against Finn Wittrock. Like, that's obviously super exciting for him in his career, but it is hard to like shake how weird that announcement is just in and of itself.
JB, your thoughts?
Yeah, so it's interesting because I knew HBO Max was working on this series, and I think that was some of why, Zack Snyder couldn't use Jon Stewart, in the Zack Snyder cut. I think they were trying to save him for that. And also I know that and even though it's not quite Jon Stewart, the John Diggle character in the Arrowverse is going to come back, and there's been some hints that he might be a Green Lantern in that universe. So, what was interesting to me was the news that Finn Wittrock's going to be the lead of the show as Guy Gardner. I think that's the most surprising thing. And I'm not sure that that's completely accurate. I wouldn't be shocked if later we get a bigger name announced as Jon Stewart and that he's really the lead. Because as Eric was saying, Guy Gardner is a total dick. I mean, he is the jerk and the likable jerk, the lovable jerk, yes, right? Sure. We end up loving him. I mean, he is definitely a hero.
He's a lot of willpower in that one.
Yeah, he's not a villain, but and so I'm going to take it with a grain of salt. I don't believe yet that Guy Gardner is really the lead. I think we're going to focus on a lot of Green Lanterns.
Well, I was going to say one thing we actually have heard that Alan Scott is going to be in there, and like I think Brie Jarta has also been talked about. So yeah, like that's the other thing about this. Like I know there was a huge backlash to the idea of like that Guy Gardner was first. Like, but I think we do have to focus on the point that like it is Green Lantern Corps. It's not just Green Lantern. It's not just going to focus on one.
Yeah, I think he's just the first announced casting, right? And then yes. So to take that with a grain of salt, I think it's a pretty good casting. I'm not that familiar with Finn's work. I think I know him
American
best
Horror
from.
Story?
So didn't see it, but or didn't see his season, I should say. Yeah, I know.
He's so good at it.
Not a big on horror, but I'll tell you what I liked him in was The Big Short. Yes. I thought he was very good in The Big Short. Now, he's not really the jerk of the two hedge fund guys. He's sort of the more humane one or nicer one, if you will. But I could see him being the dick. So, like, I think it's going to be, it's going to be a little bit of acting work for Finn because he seems like a nice guy and a likable guy. And so he's got to come off as still likable, but also abrasive and a bit of a jerk.
It's a hard line to walk.
Yeah, it is. But I think he could do it. Now, the only thing is, also, remember, Guy Gardner is a redhead. And I know Finn's hair is like a little auburn, but I was picturing more of like, Ron Howard from Happy Days kind of look. You know what I mean?
Ginger.
Like yes, full ginger, the Gleason kid from the Harry Potter movies is a good
Donald,
Donald would be a good example of someone that would be, physically right. And he's also, if I remember right from the comics, kind of built like a fire hydrant, you know what I mean? He's a little bit like stockier, I think, than sort of lean and slim. But it's a TV show adaptation. He's a good actor from what I've seen. Like, I think he can do it. And like I said, I expect some bigger names to be in the cast along with him. So.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I think for us audience members, we just get so excited at these announcements. So I feel like we kind of, in a way, sometimes we just focus on Green Lantern series, Guy Gardner, and then we forget everything else. And we're all of a sudden going into like, he's going to be the lead in the show. It's going to center around him. Like I don't believe anywhere it actually said that. All it says, technically, even the headline says it. It's just that he's going to star as Guy Gardner, and nowhere it was going to be that the show is about Guy Gardner. And and as Eric and you guys pointed out, like, this is the Green Lantern Corps show. So he's probably just the first one to finalize the deal all the, I's are dotted, T's are crossed, and they can go, okay, now we can announce this. And it's a nice announcement because especially this show, I would love for them to bring in, actors that we haven't heard of yet. Let's discover some new people, and maybe just also as marketing, he definitely has a solid fan base. Like he's in a lot of the American Horror Stories because Ryan Murphy likes to reuse his actors. So he's been in like Hotel and Freak Show and who knows, I don't even remember what other
Ratchet
ones.
Too. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's right.
Ratchet. Yep.
Yeah. So good. So it's, it's going to be interesting to see him flex this type of acting muscle. And as Tari says here in the comment section, he doesn't fit Guy Gardner to me, but I'm open to seeing it. It's kind of how I feel. I feel like he's like almost too nice to play. Like he's just like, he seems so like chill and just laid back. So for me to try to picture him as Guy Gardner, I'm trying to use my imagination a little bit, but I'm going to let him do the actor thing. And then when the show finally comes out, we'll be able to see, one, who else is going to be in it, and two, how he is as Guy Gardner.
I'd be really surprised if Jon Stewart doesn't end up in the show. I mean, I would be like really shocked if Jon Stewart.
I think the fans would be not happy if he just didn't show up. Did you guys see, I believe it was on Twitter and it was tweeted out by the actor who played him but didn't make the cut. Wayne T. Carr tweeted out some behind the scene photos of him as, I believe it was Jon Stewart. The guy looks just like him. If you plucked him out of the comic book and you put him, in real life, that's him. Same hairline and everything. I was like, whoa.
Most interesting to me about those shots was seeing Zack Snyder's driveway, because that's where they shot it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Driver production.
I'm just excited by this news because, 2011, like the Ryan Reynolds Green Lantern movie, it set that character back so hard. Like it was just, it was rough. And like every fan of the character knows that the character has so much more potential than what that movie displayed. And obviously, like we paid like a decade of penance for that bad movie, but I'm very excited for people to like on a larger pop culture scale to like fully grasp everything that the character has to offer. Like that's exciting.
100%.
And I just want to pick up on something Eric just said. I hate it when studios do that, right? Like Green Lantern, we all know, is a member of the Justice League and absolutely should have been. And listen, the Ryan Reynolds movie wasn't even that bad on the grand scheme of bad movies.
Oh yeah, there are way worse comic book movies.
Oh, yeah.
Way worse comic movies, way worse movies in general. And so, but it wasn't what the fans wanted. It wasn't a hit. And so, but I hate the fact that because of that, just like you said, Eric, like it's like he's in superhero jail for 10 years and we have to pretend Green Lanterns aren't part of the Justice League. I hate it. And Marvel does it too. Marvel's done it too. Like I hate it when they do that. And so justice for Green Lantern. Come on.
Yes, start that hashtag right now. Hashtag Justice for Green Lantern.
I'm surprised it hasn't already been started.
It might be. Maybe we're just not aware. Right. I don't spend all my waking hours on Twitter, so it's totally possible. But I have been spending my last few waking hours rewatching the finale for Invincible. That's available now on Amazon Prime. We've hit the end for season 1. And if you haven't watched it and you want to dive into it, just a little caveat up ahead, it is rated MA for mature, or as I like to call it, rated Ma for mature. So just know that going in, there's a lot of, I'm not even going to like play it lightly. There's a lot of graphic violence. So if you're not okay with something like that, Castlevania does the same thing on Netflix. The show probably is not for you, but if you're okay with it, it's a really interesting storyline. It centers around Mark, who comes into his superhero power because of who one of his parents is, and discovery through his kind of, a little bit of coming of age, the kid getting powers, learning how to use them, and living the double life of a teenager and a superhero, and some family drama, to put it lightly. So Jami and I have been enjoying the show so much. What was your reaction seeing this season finale? Because it was intense.
Yeah, I mean, I loved it. I didn't even realize that it was only going to be 8 episodes, and like this was the end. I was like, oh, and I know the comic book, so I was kind of like, oh, yeah, this is sort of the end of the first omnibus. So I love the series. I'm a big fan of the Robert Kirkman comic book. It's probably my favorite of all his work, and Walking Dead fans don't email me. Yeah, I love Invincible. It's always been to me kind of like, what if Peter Parker was Kal-El's son? You know what I mean? Like, it's sort of that kind of vibe, and does a lot of sort of deconstruction of DC, but Marvel too, but of the sort of superhero tropes. And I thought today, if you haven't watched it yet, there are twists and turns in the comic book story that I wasn't quite sure how they were going to deal with in the series. And in fact, the big twist at the end of episode 1 didn't happen in the comic book until issue 7 or 8.
Oh.
So I thought that was really interesting. They kind of moved that forward so that they could pay off the other big thing that happens at the end of the finale, right? So that's how they kind of capped it. And so I'm really excited for that they've announced the season 2 and 3, and I feel like they have a really good idea of where they want to go with the series. And the fact that, I mean, there's a lot more story to tell, but I thought that this first season is sort of that first omnibus, maybe the first 25 issues of, I think it was 100+ issue run. So yeah, I loved it. I thought it was really awesome. I'm trying to tell all my, friends and relatives, like, you need something to binge, check out Invincible. You'll love it. You'll love it.
Yeah, you like, Eric, I'll say this, like, when you have the time to do it, you're going to click on episode 1, and you're going to be like, this is not what they're talking about. Like, where's all the stuff that they talked about? Just watch it all the way through, and I promise you, last 10 minutes, you're going to be like, okay, so I'm going to just clear my schedule and then go 2 through 8. Like, I promise you will. If you're okay with graphic violence, that is. I don't want to make you watch something that you're like totally not. You're like, no, Wendy,
I have a Deadpool head behind me, so yeah, that should have been.
But let me ask Eric. Were you aware of the comic book? Do you know the Invincible book well?
I was aware of the comic.
Yeah,
I haven't read it, and like, I am interested in the show. I literally haven't had time to get to it though. But I will say, and this kind of is a different tangent for the conversation, but like, the idea that it's been renewed for both season 2 and 3, that's incentive for me to watch now, because now I know that it isn't just going to be a one and done show. Like, honestly, I think that streaming shows in general really need to get used to long-term commitments. Like, when you're building a streaming service, the idea is that you are building a library of complete material. And like, there's so many shows on Netflix that are just like, have one season and then nobody watched, so they just die. And so anybody that wants to get into it later, they can watch those episodes, but they don't really have incentive because they know it doesn't go anywhere. And like, so the idea that Amazon is willing to say like, oh no, we are going to continue making Invincible for years to come. They did the same thing with The Boys last year, I believe, and it was like, I do watch The Boys. The Boys is fantastic. And I was, again, really excited to see them make that commitment. So yeah, I'd say that like, the actual news of its renewal it actually gave me more incentive to check it out. So
that's interesting.
On beyond everything I've heard.
Good. I'm so glad we've converted another fan team.
Yay!
we keep talking about it. We've been talking about the show since it aired. We're just like, it's just unbelievable. And I'm not saying like this is like a super original story, but it's the way they go through everybody's arcs, and every character has a story and has an arc, even though it is really centered around like Omni-Man and Mark's story. I would say each other superheroes, you get to really see how they display their power, and I think it's really unique in the way they animated everything. So this is like, it's like those dramatic moments. Yeah,
the voice cast is amazing. Yeah,
so good. Yeah. So also, it made me afraid of J.K. Simmons a lot. The finale, like, he's
an intimidating dude. I mean, you go through his whole career, like he
just yells at you as John Jonah Jameson, right? He yells at you as Omni-Man.
He was crazy, and of course yells at drummers in Whiplash, which he won an Oscar for. And I was going to say, I don't know if you ever saw the HBO series Oz, but he played this like crazy neo-Nazi prison. Like, he was nuts. He's an amazing actor. JK's amazing actor. Well, Wendy, because you weren't really familiar with the comic or the show before you started watching it, but then really have grown to love it. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I heard about it at first, and when I got like the email for the announcement, I was like, this sounds like a great show. And prior to this, I had no knowledge that it was even a comic book. So immediately I was like, well, let me just watch the show first. and then doing the comic book, because when I researched it, I was like, oh, that's like it's a big one. So like, let me just watch the first episode and see if I want to invest, the money into purchasing the physical media, because I don't love. I mean, I like digital things for sake of space, but I prefer to hold things in my hand. Like, I still collect the Blu-rays and the discs and like all my video games. If I can get it physical, I'll get a physical. So I am glad I like stuck through the first episode, because as we're watching the first one, I was like, this is not what the tagline promised. I mean, I like the story, it's fun, but like, I was like, where is this stuff? Until like, then you get the mid-credit, a very long mid-credit scene. I was like, oh, this is it. And then after that, I was like, when is episode 2 coming out? And right there, hooked. I was a fan already. And then the next day, I think you and I talked about it on the show.
Yeah.
So I'm very much looking forward to season 2 and 3. I'm really happy that they didn't wait too long until after the finale to tell us. I feel like that, kind of to you guys' point, that Amazon already knew the fan base around this from, both comic books and new fans alike, that this show is a success and it definitely deserves, a season 2 and a season 3. So I'm happy that they're just like, hey, not just a season 2, but also season 3. You're welcome. And I'm just really, really happy.
I think that's also maybe a little bit of like, Amazon really wants to stay in the Seth Rogen business, right? And they've had a lot of success with The Boys. Obviously, Invincible has been successful. It's another Seth Rogen project. They want to do more projects with Seth Rogen. So I don't know how much of that. I mean, I think it's based a little bit on, the finale was coming and they wanted to, get a little bit more excitement. But I think it also has to do with like, that's their guy, that's Amazon's Kevin Feige is Seth Rogen.
Yes. Who knew? I honestly had no idea until I was like, wait, and thanks for the reminder, because he is like producing, right? Both
producing, and he's the voice of the alien.
Yes, yeah. Which very recognizable once you hear it. You're like,
yes, it is.
It's got Mama's Geeky in the chat saying she is hyped for more Invincible. We are too. And then Eric, once you've seen the series, and then when like season 2 premieres, we got to have you back on the show.
Sounds
so
good.
that you can jump in on this conversation and share our excitement with us. Totally. But you guys, we're not just excited about more Invincible. We're excited about more and more Marvel news. So they dropped this early this morning, a full like 3-minute plus video on celebrating, obviously, all the superheroes so far in the MCU. And the last like half of that video is to give us a nice tease to what's to come for Marvel Phase 4, which I was watching it when you guys were kind of chatting amongst yourself. And afterwards, I was like, you guys, I feel like I just went to Comic-Con and I just watched like the Marvel's presentation, because it got you so excited. That voiceover by Stan Lee kind of going after, reminding us of these characters, that they're not just punch, punch, kick, kick and flying through the air, but the relationship they have with each other, brother, sister, all of that. What was going through your mind as you were watching this? Let's go with Eric.
Well, first off, I will say, I mean, it's funny that you just mentioned how Seth Rogen's voice is so identifiable, because as soon as I heard Stan Lee's voice, I was like, oh, okay, now I'm going to get emotional. This is fun. But I mean, I thought it was just an amazing thing, if not just because like, what was different about 2020 is this is the first year since 2010 that we didn't get a Marvel movie, which is kind of that's a long run, especially when they went from like 2 movies to 3 movies a year. Now they're moving to 4 movies. So like, to have, given that Marvel has just had such a huge presence on the theatrical market in the last decade, it felt right that they had this like big kind of welcome back experience. Of course, having that footage from the first night of Endgame's release, and just hearing that crowd react to the On Your Left and Avengers Assemble. Like, I mean, I'm sure that neither of you will ever forget where you were when you experienced that for the first moment. It's iconic. It's incredible cinema. And then of course, and so like, you had this beautiful celebration of everything that they've done, and then it kicks in with everything that's to come. And, we didn't obviously get to see all that much new stuff. Like Eternals showed us maybe 3 new shots. It's funny to think about in the context of Kevin Feige's quotes from this past week about the vision that Chloe Zhao has for Eternals, because, I mean, while we didn't see a lot of it, those shots were absolutely gorgeous. They look, it looks just beautiful from a cinematography perspective. But also, I mean, 10 titles. I mean, we have 4 coming out this 4 coming out this year, 4 coming out next year, and then 2 dates announced for the year after that. Like, there's a lot to get excited for Marvel in the next couple of years.
There is so much, and I will say I'm happy that in this video prior to giving us what's coming up for Phase 4, they did give us that like fan reaction in the theater, because it brought me back to, oh my gosh, I remember that moment. Was lucky enough to go to the premiere. I think you were both there. I want to say we were both there. And just, I also remember knowing that movie was going to be kind of long. And I was like, don't over drink water. Do not overhydrate. Don't be that one person that has to get up in the middle of the movie. And I didn't. I didn't get up at all. I was like, all right. But afterwards, I was like, I need to go to the bathroom ASAP. But I love that at the end, after they kind of gave us all the teases through all the upcoming titles, that they're like, we'll see you at the movies. And I'm like, yeah, it's emotional. Jami, your thoughts on the new Marvel titles?
Yeah, I definitely think the trailer was sort of a like, let's go back to the movies. Theaters are opening. We're going to have Marvel movies in the theaters. Like, I definitely think it was a little bit of a PSA for theatrical. But yeah, to me, you know, Eric said there were a couple new shots of internals, which was great to see. I think we've seen all the footage we're going to see of Black Widow before it opens. So I just want to see that movie at this point, you know, because it's been so long. But as for the titles, so they announced that Black Panther 2 will not be called Black Panther 2. It's going to be called Wakanda Forever, which I think is a very fitting title, especially with the knowledge that Chadwick Boseman won't be in the movie and that they're not going to, you know, digitally replace him or recast him, you know, so using Black Panther 2 doesn't quite make as much sense as Wakanda Forever. And I'm starting to wonder if maybe rather than quote unquote replacing T'Challa, replacing the Black Panther as that mantle, if the franchise won't become more of a Wakanda, almost like a team series of movies, right? Like, instead of being about one person, you know, it's like the Guardians, it's about the whole group. I think we're going to Marvel's going to look at Wakanda as the whole group, right?
So they also have the Disney Plus series in the works too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then obviously we saw the Dora Milaje in, you know, Falcon Winter Soldier. So I think Wakanda Forever also gives a feeling of, you know, Chadwick Boseman forever, you know, this forever kind of thing. So I think it's the perfect time, because I don't think calling it Black Panther 2 in the light of what we know is maybe the best idea. But calling it Wakanda Forever, I really love that. And then the other amazing new title we got was The Marvels. It's not going to be...
Let's talk about The Marvels. I was actually kind of surprised.
You're dressed
appropriately,
by the way.
Yes, very appropriately. That was the most surprising. Again, I think it's very fitting. I mean, we now know that there will be essentially 2 Captain Marvels and a Miss Marvel in Captain Marvel 2. So calling it Captain Marvel 2 maybe wouldn't be the best way to go anymore. So the Marvels, I mean, I like that a lot. And, you know, I mean, there's one part of me that kind of thinks, well, I don't know. It is Brie Larson's movie. It would be nice for Captain Marvel 2 to really get a proper sequel before sort of branching out, you know, the Marvel family. But, you know, at this point, I give Feige and the Marvel Brain Trust a lot of leeway. And so, you know, I think it could be going in the right direction. I think it's great.
I will say one thing. I was talking about your friend Silas Lesnick about this, and it is kind of funny that it is like when you think about Shazam and how Marvel just kind of co-opted the like idea of Captain Marvel, took that title for itself, but also now like even the Marvel family, they're kind of taking that as well. So it is kind of funny to look at that in that context. Also, I mean, like, I mean, when I think Marvels, the first thing I think of is the Kurt Busiek, Alex Ross comic, which is just some of the most beautiful artwork that has ever been put in a Marvel comic. I have absolutely no reason for bringing that up other than basically just advocate for anyone watching, read that book, because yeah, you'll be stunned, because Alex Ross is a goddamn genius. So yeah.
No arguments there. And I think they have a new book of Alex Ross Marvel covers or prints or something. There's a new Alex Ross Marvel book out. So just give Alex a free plug there.
Oh, it's not appreciated. Actually, one question I'll throw to you guys. I mean, How do you guys feel? Like, I mean, 4 movies in the back half of 2021 is a lot. 4 movies then again in 2022. Do you? I mean, I feel like we've been having the conversation about like Marvel exhaustion, superhero exhaustion for a decade now, and clearly none of it has let up. But how do you think that, like, and especially also knowing that like DC is also doing 4 movies next year? So, yeah, what do you think?
Let me say something about the comic book exhaustion, because like 15 years ago, I'm not going to do the math, but I think it was like 2000 and I'm going to say maybe 7 or 8. I interviewed Steve Gerber. Steve Gerber is a comic book legend. He created Howard the Duck. He created Thundar the Barbarian, the Saturday morning cartoon from the 80s. Did a lot of work with Silver Surfer, Doctor Strange. So I was interviewing him for Wizard Magazine. And this was like the summer of 08. So you had Dark Knight, Iron Man. Marvel Universe was just born with Iron Man. I think there was maybe Fantastic Four, Silver Surfer. There was a bunch of different comic book movies. And I asked him like about the comic book bubble that we've been hearing about for like 20 years now, right? Like, when's it gonna explode? When are people gonna get sick of Marvel movies? And he was like, I would have thought they would have gotten sick 5 or 6 years ago. He's like, I didn't think that you'd ever have a summer with, Silver Surfer and Batman and Iron Man. And he's like, it's crazy. So I'm now under the belief that like, it won't ever explode, right? Like there's no bubble. Like it's just as much of like a genre as romantic comedies or musicals or westerns. Like it's an American genre and it's not going anywhere. Will it always be the top tier of entertainment? I don't know. But
I think it even kind of folds in on itself though, because I mean, the superhero genre is even such just a blanket, almost nonsense word, because what the best of these movies have done is take other genres and move them in and find different ways to tell stories. And like, there are plenty of franchises that get stuck in one mode and they have a dictionary definition of what the franchise is, and that can be hampering, but that is not at all the case. And frankly, if you just look at the slate, I mean, Black Widow, Shang-Chi, Eternals, Spider-Man, these are all very different movies that like if they weren't all in the same universe, you wouldn't necessarily associate them with one another. So I completely agree with you that I don't necessarily think that, I don't think the fatigue really exists. What do you think, Wendy?
I, for me, am happy that the fatigue, because we've all talked about it and we've all heard about it. And like, eventually it's going to happen because it's the same. It could potentially have been the same thing over and over and over. And I'm really happy that, and speaking to both Marvel and DC, so like, because those are like, I think when you talk comic book movies, you think those two brands immediately, and that they both, I think, had to start, you got to set, a base first. So I would say the first few, even though, like, I remember when Marvel started with Iron Man, I was like, Iron Man, what, who, why? But then look what they build from there. And you can look at DC and say the same thing, where you are like, okay, well, they're just going to center around like just Batman movies, just Superman movies. But now we have Wonder Woman, we're getting the Flash movie, we got the Snyder Cut. So there's so much that has progressed throughout, and I'm glad that these studios and the storytellers have made it a point to pave the way, and that as fans we patiently just kind of like, let's just see where this goes next. And I'm so glad that I stayed within it. I never felt like exhausted ever from like, oh god, another superhero movie. I think maybe for the average fan, the average moviegoer who doesn't just want to go to the movie and see, superhero movies all the time like me. Maybe like,
oh, no. You're talking about Martin Scorsese?
I've been talking to him. Marty and I've been talking.
You're talking about him. Yeah.
His ears ringing. He's like, they talking about me over there. But, now if we look at it, and to what Eric was saying earlier, look at it now, phase 4, first of all, finally, we're going to get to see this Black Widow movie that I really had wanted a couple of years earlier, but it's okay. I don't want to keep complaining about it, because we're getting it. But different superheroes, different backstories, different filming styles, different, cinematography, different directors. We have Chloe Zhao, Oscar winning director to direct the Eternals. So I can't wait to see what she's done with that. This is absolutely insane. And I think the bubble of superhero movies, it's not going to burst. It's just going to grow bigger and bigger until it like encompasses the globe. As we know, with these superhero genres, like Comic-Con has gotten bigger and bigger every year. Every single year at Hall H, you sit down, you think, how are they going to top last year? How are they going to do that? And even with the move to digital, with the pandemic, they still keep finding ways to wow us. You know, would they give us DC Fandome? That's coming in October. They're giving us this Marvel tease. So I don't think superhero fatigue is a thing at all. We maybe thought it was because it was, like you said, for a year. It's kind of like, whoa, that's a lot. But it's not for, I think I would find fatigue if it was for within the same storyline.
Sure.
Right. If they're like, okay, Guardians of the Galaxy 1, 2, 3. It's like, okay, well, no, I need like a different flavor to clench the palate. But since they're giving us like all the different types, I think it's just really different cast, different directors, different, even with like, say, Spider-Man, I feel like it's so different from the rest of the MCU because it's technically under the Sony banner. So when I watch it, it sometimes doesn't feel like a Disney Marvel film, which is not a bad thing to me. Like I love it. Yeah. So I cannot wait. I will say with like, I don't know, this trailer, I kind of want to go back and watch it over and over again because the flashers were so quick, but I am kind of obsessed already with the imagery of the Eternals that they showed us. I know very little about the Eternals. I know who's in it, and I love that we got to see glimpses of these characters. And have you guys read any of the comics? And if you have, where would you suggest fans to start, or if there is just one to go with?
I mean, I think I think the best place to start is, I mean, honestly, the original stuff, the Jack Kirby material.
Nice.
It is, I mean, it's from the 1970s, so it is, I mean, a bit dated by just like modern standards of what people expect from comics. But honestly, that artwork is so legendary, and it just is so pure Kirby in every single way. Like Eternals is very much like his baby. It's his, like, I mean, I think it was, if Jami might be able to correct me on this, but I think it was after he left DC after making Fourth World, he came over to Marvel and kind of wanted to explore some similar themes.
Came back.
Yes. And yeah, because obviously he had been a huge part of its foundation. But I mean, but that material, I mean, there is, it goes on for many. I think Neil Gaiman did a very memorable run that that is definitely worth recommending. But I would say the Jack Kirby's Place is the way to start. Also, if not only because that's also what we've heard is kind of the inspiration for the movie.
So that's interesting. I would actually recommend you start with the Neil Gaiman omnibus, because I feel like that's more of what they're adapting for the movie. But but maybe you're correct. Maybe, I mean, I would imagine,
why not both?
I would imagine that they're going to use sort of Kirby inspiration, but then, you know, they tend to use
storytelling.
They tend to use more recent, you know, even the Guardians of the Galaxy movie was more based on the recent team. Captain Marvel was certainly based on the more recent Captain Marvel from the comics, not Carol Danvers.
Even like Doctor Strange, they have like the Oath mini-series and both, also going back to...
Thor 4 is based on a comic book that was written like 8 years ago. So I feel like Marvel more likely is taking inspiration from the more recent and very popular Neil Gaiman work. But I'm sure they're using inspiration from Kirby as well. Yeah.
Having, because you guys have both read the Eternals, the comics, right? Comparing the source material to the images we saw today, how do you feel about the movie so far?
It's kind of hard to tell, honestly.
Yeah,
like just because those glimpses are so quick.
Brief. Yeah, and also you see them mostly in like human clothes, so you don't necessarily get the full spectacle of it. But I mean, am I pumped for it? Absolutely. Like it looks super cool, and obviously that cast is just outrageous. Like there's a lot of talent there. So
yeah.
I love that shot of Kumal. I thought he looked like a badass.
Kumal.
Yeah. Like I was like, wait, who's that? And I'm like, oh, it's him.
He worked hard for that.
Yeah, he looked awesome. So I like that shot, and you know, love the shot with Angelina and the sword. But again, you know, with what Eric said, like, I mean, it was literally like 4 seconds of shots. It's really hard to tell. I can't wait until we get a full trailer, or at least a teaser trailer. I would think something is going to come sooner than later, since the movie, you know, has basically been in the can for a year. I think it's
basically just that there are two other movies to come out before.
So I'm sure sooner than later this year, we're going to be seeing, or before the summer's over, we'll see a full trailer for Eternal. So that's what I'm really excited for, is to finally get to see how those characters fit in and what they're going to look like. And that'll be great.
And I will toss this into the conversation, like, and this is obviously something that is more long term, but like, I also feel like when this project was first announced, I guess is Comic-Con 2019, it was the year after the whole James Gunn firing. It seemed like the entire Marvel schedule had been a bit thrown off. Eternals just like ran into production very, very fast compared to like the amount of time that you usually see for pre-production on these movies. And so there was some concern on my part that, are they moving a little bit too fast with this movie? Like, is it maybe not going to be up to standards? It's one of those cases where I wonder if like the pandemic, just having the expanded schedule, having those pushbacks may have ultimately been to the benefit of the movie and allows it to be the best movie that it can be. That's entirely speculation. But you know, it is something that is on my mind about it. So throw it out there.
Yeah, that is actually an interesting way to kind of think about that, because that was the last time I sat in Hall H, 2019, right, and you know, to watch that. And I remember that Marvel presentation and seeing, you know, Simu Liu getting on stage and introducing himself as Shang-Chi, and then the cast of the Eternals came out, and so on and so forth. I'm like, wow, look at all this. And then it was news, and then pandemic, and I'm like, uh-oh. What's about to happen to all these movies? Because with the MCU, it's like 10 years of movies now, right? Yeah. So they have this they've really built this like 22 movies that they've given us so far, that they've really like embraced the actual definition of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I felt like this pandemic really, to me, it felt like for any studio that has, you know, plans like this, really threw a wrench into it. And it's kind of like, well, now what? Now we can't release this, but this has to come before this, because these characters, and we saw, I feel like, a little bit of that with the TV show. For example, like with WandaVision, we knew that technically it should have came after Falcon and the Winter Soldier. However, we got that first, which I'm not complaining at all because I'm obsessed with the show. But then we got Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and a very specific character shows up who apparently either is or was going to have a cameo in Black Widow, the movie. So I am kind of curious to see how that really, how much like Tetrising they had to do with these movies still for us fans, especially fans that are like have very deep knowledge of the MCU and the comic books, being, well, wait, hold on, this isn't matching up, and now do you have to retcon this? So I'm hoping that they, you know, with this now confirmed release schedule, fingers crossed, there's no more delays, that it will continue to move forward as planned.
Well, they definitely. Oh, go ahead, Eric.
Well, I was just gonna say, it is kind of weird that in a certain way, like Avengers Endgame gave us that 5-year time jump. We've kind of now caught up with them, and that obviously was not planned in any single way. But like, yeah, like there was a period where it's like, oh, Marvel movies are going to be taking place in the future. Not really. Yeah. Like they're just basically happening in the present just because of circumstances we could have never seen before coming. So yeah,
that's a super good point. That's actually a super good point. And also, like, I think, and it's been said before, like obviously they had to do some reshuffling, but had the pandemic happened in 2018 or 2019, I mean, they would be completely screwed. So the fact that it
can you imagine if Avengers Endgame?
I know.
Oh man.
Yeah, if we all went to Infinity War and then Endgame was postponed 2 years. Yeah, that would really mess it. So the fact that they got through phase 3,
at least there was that.
Yeah, exactly. and we knew that Black Widow was always going to be a weird retro thing. So that, you know, piece of the puzzle,
honestly, it's kind of nice even having that gap after Endgame, though, because it allows the Infinity Saga to be its own thing in our mind. And now Black Widow and the Marvel shows will kind of like phase 4 is starting a new generation. And like, again, that we never would have felt that way if things had gone to plan and Black Widow would have come out less than a year after Spider-Man Far From Home. But like, yeah, it's weird how everything has played out.
And even
totally. Go ahead, Jamie. Yeah. No.
Well, I was just gonna say, even if Contessa shows up in Black Widow, I still feel like slightly introducing her in Falcon and Winter Soldier. I feel like there's gonna be more of an impact when we see Julia Louis-Dreyfus in an MCU movie than if she had just popped up in Black Widow and you'd be like, wait, what? What's it? So I feel like the introduction in Falcon may even help things as they move along, but we'll see.
Interesting. I feel kind of opposite.
Yeah.
I feel like if we had seen her, like, you know, just because I feel like the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, her obviously was very much a cameo role. So I feel like, and I don't know because none of us have seen the Black Widow movie yet, so we don't know in what capacity she has in this film. So it could also be a cameo role, right? I could be like totally talking out my ass right now, but I feel like she has a slightly larger part to play in comparison to her part in Falcon and Winter Soldier, and that would have seen her introduced to her properly in the Black Widow film. And then to see her pop up again in Falcon and Winter Soldier, and you're going, oh my gosh, wait, everything. And that would have really tied in movie and film for us all over again. Right. So I kind of, wanted that. But again, I might eat my words when we finally see Black Widow and be like, no, I love the way that they handle this. So it could really go one or the other way.
Yeah, I mean, it may ultimately end up being that like what she's doing in Black Widow makes us rethink everything that we've seen in Falcon and Winter Soldier. And that might be awesome. No idea. So we'll see.
Absolutely. So out of all the titles that they announced this morning, I feel like hold on, I got to go back to my notes because without them, I think I might miss them. We have obviously Black Widow coming up. We have the Marvels, the Eternals, Shang-Chi. We have Doctor Strange 2, Wakanda Forever, Spider-Man, No Way Home, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, Thor, Love and Thunder. Am I missing any other ones? I think I got it all.
Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania.
Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. So out of everything that was announced. Oh my God! We have to talk about this. That's right. I had it like a note, but it was on towards the bottom. Was not expecting that to pop up, and of course they left it for last.
No date, and no date,
right?
Like,
real quick, your reactions. Let's recount your reactions when you saw that 4 pop up.
Oh, I'm beyond excited. Like, I mean, the fact that they have, I mean, obviously, I think fans have been waiting for this to happen. The idea of Fantastic Four in the MCU has been a dream ever since they totally screwed up the 2005 movie. And obviously every movie since then.
Right.
But like, so yeah, I mean, and John Watts has proven himself an incredibly talented filmmaker. It is weird that we have like very little context for him outside of Spider-Man movies. I do love Cop Car though. Cop Car is excellent. If you haven't seen it, it is a really, really cool movie. So I have a lot of faith in John Watts to deliver a really cool film. And obviously Marvel has the opportunity to completely reinvent the cinematic existence of the Fantastic Four. And that by itself is obviously, that's an incredible opportunity. So, yeah.
Jami, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we got this announcement, at the last D23 or something?
Something like that. One of those.
We knew Fantastic Four was that. So just to see like the card pop up here today feels
more real.
It feels more real, yeah. But I was gonna say wasn't shocking. I was like, oh yeah, but at least like, oh good, that wasn't just a one-time thing. They are moving forward.
We're still doing it.
Yeah, it's still in the cards. I mean, I'm interested in like when we're going to start hearing some casting. I got to imagine like that all stuff is, if this is part of phase 4, like they're going to need to get, into pre-production pretty soon and we'll start to hear things. So, and I agree with Eric. I think John Watts has definitely proven himself with the Spider-Man films. I think of the Marvel Universe directors, the ones that made the most sense to do this film would have been him, Jon Favreau, or Peyton Reed. So, I think he's a good choice. And then I just it'll be really interesting to see what they do with casting and how they bring them into the MCU. Like we had talked, Wendy, on one episode when we were reviewing WandaVision that they had mentioned there are 4 astronauts. The guy who runs S.W.O.R.D. is there are 4 astronauts in space and I can't even find them. Like, is that the Fantastic Four? Were they in outer space and they blipped away and then they blipped back and they have powers? Is the negative zone involved? Are they from a Doctor Strange multiverse thing? Like, there's so many opportunities here to introduce them. And then, of course, mutants later on. So, we're all ready for it. And when Eric said the bad Fantastic Four movie from 2005, I mean, they've made 4 Fantastic Four movies and none of them are good. I mean, it's bad when you might actually say the Roger Corman one was the best, right? Like, that's a problem. Yeah. And so, and also in a way, not that Marvel really needs this because they always hit it out of the park, but the bar is so low now. And we were talking about this last week with Mortal Kombat. The bar was really low for them to hit that one out of the park, and they did it. Again, the bar is low with Fantastic Four to do a great Fantastic Four, but obviously the MCU bar is very high, so they're going to have to try to fit something in that works.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's very easy to earn the title Best Fantastic Four movie ever. So,
Best Fan. I mean,
I hope so. I really hope so, because I don't want to keep, kind of to what Mama Geeky is saying here. As long as we don't get another origin story, I'll be happy. Like, I don't want to keep having to rewatch them, reintroduce these characters that we've already known for ages and ages, because the movies aren't consistently successful, and then so you recast and you redo it, and then everybody was like kind of excited for this other one, but they didn't really pan out the way we all thought it was going to pan out, and it's like wah wah wah. And she also says, honestly, I am sure Feige and Marvel can pull off an origin story, but I prefer not to get that. Kind of like I would say in the Spider-Man, the Tom Holland Spider-Man, like like standalone, we didn't really need to see like the Uncle Ben thing all over again. Like it hurts every time we watch it.
I mean, I'd argue even with Black Panther didn't need an origin story. Like Black Panther, it just launches you into this world. And I do think I think Marvel movies have gotten to a point where like the origin stories are basically the stories we know. They are like, in their defense, they do like stay true to the comics and bring to life what it is. But the thing is, like, when you establish these characters for an audience, you know what they're all about, then you have the opportunity to just tell any story that you want, that you think is the most fascinating way to take advantage of these characters and what is going on in the world. And like, if you can just skip that, because Fantastic Four, we all know what happened to the Fantastic Four, even if you change it up a little bit, we all have a general idea of why these characters are the way that they are. I feel like you can just launch in and just tell an awesome Fantastic Four movie. That's what I'm all about.
So. Yeah, I can't wait for the casting announcement. I know we're probably a bit far away from that. I think that's a property that, finally we're getting this, that they're going to take extra care to cast the right characters, because you have to think they're playing the long game here. You don't just get cast in one Marvel movie and you're like, okay, see you later. Right. Doesn't matter. Like, remember Paul Bettany said that he was going to, I guess I'm done. Sorry, you're not done. We're going to get you to do a TV show. So yeah, I think, when we see the cast, when they're ready to announce, and I bet you they've got their list and they're narrowing down who knows, they haven't even like, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's all these secrets, and Marvel's very good at hiding their secrets. They are like, they have just like people like, they have like the earpiece. Don't talk about Marvel. Right. Don't talk about Marvel.
There's one of them watching this video right now just to make sure
like that they know too much. They know too much. How do they know this? Who's their source? So I'm very excited for the future. Like, imagine like the next video, and I know I'm looking way into the future, like, probably a couple years later, but imagine then like the X pop up for X-Men. Yeah, like that's where I'm looking way into the future. I'm saying, give me that. So I can't wait. But you guys, with all the titles that's been announced today, which like top 3 that you're most looking forward to?
Ooh.
I will say my number one has to be Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. Sam Raimi is just utter genius. The idea that he is returning to the world of comic book movies. Obviously, I won't defend Spider-Man 3, but Spider-Man 1 and 2 have aged absolutely beautifully. I don't care what anybody says. Spider-Man 2 is easily one of the best superhero movies of all time, and he's dealing in elements that like are so perfect within his just like his circle. He is so within his realm with Doctor Strange and the horror elements and like zipping around the multiverse, and obviously the whole everything that we've heard like coming off of WandaVision and what's going on with that character and where it could lead. Yeah, like that movie is definitely high on my radar.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'd have to put Multiverse of Madness and Spider-Man probably as my top 2. Obviously, Fantastic Four. I don't know. I'm also
Thor.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, Ragnarok's one of my favorites. So see what Taika does with that. I mean, again, Guardians is one of my favorites. To see what James does with Guardians 3, and I love the Ant-Man movies. I love both of the Ant-Man movies. And in fact, Ant-Man and Wasp even more than the first one. So, all of them. I mean, we're Marvel fans. We're excited for all of them. And
Nia DaCosta is an incredibly talented filmmaker. I'm like, Little Woods is great. I'm so excited for Candyman, and the idea that she's doing the Marvels is just another like feather in the cap. Like, there isn't a project on this slate that I'm not looking forward to.
Yeah, it's
Every
kind of hard
single
to
one
pick a top
has its
three.
argument to be made. So.
Which is why I
Yeah.
posed the question. I'm like, this is going to stump them a little bit, I think, is how do you pick like your favorite out of all these very exciting titles? But I think aside from Black Widow, just because I'm like very impatient, I feel like we've all been waiting so long to see, you know, her solo movie. But after that, I feel like because of WandaVision, Doctor Strange really moved up on that list for me.
Yes.
Because we know, you know, Wanda, or should I say Scarlet Witch, is going to be involved in this. So I can't wait to see. I've been wanting to see this like multiverse of madness or whatever it's called. Like I can't wait, because I think that movie is going to be bananas. And especially with Sam Raimi at the helm, it's going to be bananas. I want to walk out of the movie and go, what did I just watch? And then turn around, buy another ticket and go back in. Be like, hold on, I need to rewatch immediately.
What comes first, Spider-Man or Doctor Strange?
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man's December.
Yeah, this year.
Spider-Man is December of 2021.
Is this year.
This year.
Uh-huh.
And then I think Doctor Strange is March of next year.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, wait, no. Shang-Chi is...
September.
Shang-Chi is September.
Oh.
Eternal November.
I feel bad. That
November.
movie kept on getting pushed back. I'm excited
There's
about
a
that
lot.
one too. The
Yeah,
martial arts look
Shang-Chi?
amazing.
Yeah,
For
I mean,
sure.
there's another one. Destin Daniel Cretton is another filmmaker who is just like every single time out, he does something interesting. Simu Liu, like I love Kim's Convenience. He is such a charismatic, awesome actor who is now getting this incredible opportunity, and people are already falling in love with him. Like his social media is just fantastic.
Blowing up.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, it really there are no losers here.
I love what Mama Zihi saying in the chat. It's going to be so banana pants crazy. I want to coin that phrase. Banana pants crazy. I love it. So you guys, we have just a couple of minutes left on the show. And I know we dove heavy into this Marvel news, but it was fresh news. And there's so many titles to talk about that we kind of had to give a lot of time to it. But before we go, you guys know I am like just a theme park enthusiast, and I love all things theme park. And finally, after a year of being closed, Disneyland has reopened. It first reopened, after 400 days of being closed on April 30th. And I don't know if you guys have plans to go back sometime this year, as not Jami, not yet.
I'm just not an amusement park guy.
I see. Okay. Yeah, you're like, nah, not for me. Also, as much as like I love Disneyland, it's an expensive habit. It's very expensive. I definitely have paid the dues, and will probably continue to pay whenever they start the pass holder program is again. But they're currently open at a 25% capacity, but they're limiting to only California residences to be able to enter and purchase tickets. And it's a whole long process. Like you have to get a ticket first, and then you have to for a date, and then you have to go and get a reservation. So it's a 2-step thing. I waited 12 hours for my tickets. I don't know why it took so long, because some people logged on the same time as me, and they're like, oh, my wait was only 2 hours. I'm like, well, isn't that nice for you? And I sat there, I was like, let's go, come on.
So basically, we're not doing Comic-Con hotels this year, but you had your experience.
Right.
Anyway.
Oh my God.
Wendy busts out the attitude.
Let's go.
She gives them the attitude.
Give them the attitude. But I booked my tickets for June 8th because I wanted to go and check out just one park one day, Avengers Campus. That's over at Disney California Adventure.
I was gonna say that's the thing that I'm definitely I'm like Jami, where I'm not a huge theme park nerd, but yeah, I mean, the idea of stepping into the Marvel universe is obviously always very attractive. So
that's exactly what I am looking for. Like I need more sneak peeks. I need photos. I keep looking at Ordinary Adventure. Peter does that, and Kitra does that together. And I'm kind of like, they have more information for us about this? Yes, no, maybe. So I'm very excited. And right now, if you're fortunate enough to book a ticket, the parks, because the capacity is so low, that there's virtually no lines for anything. Things are under 10-minute waits. It's very spacious. They are, because for the ride vehicles, you have to social distance in a ride vehicle. So only one household per car, and then they'll skip a car. And then so you're seeing like almost an empty ride vehicle go through, because it's like, if you're only coming by yourself, they're not going to have you sit with a stranger. Absolutely not.
Right.
Yeah. So do know that Disney is taking all the safety measures that they need to in order to reopen, because I know California is pretty strict when it comes to
that's great.
Tiers.
That's great that they're doing that. That actually makes me feel safer about an opportunity of possibly going.
Yeah, but I would say if you want to go, try to go within like the first month before they're able to raise the capacity more,
Right.
and then it'll get a little busier. But I think safety first for their cast members and guests, and then they can think about raising the capacity. So with that said, you guys, I think we've reached the end of our show. We've gone a little over time. So thank you to Jami and Eric for coming on the show to talk all the geeky goodness with us. Eric, I so appreciate you and your input on the show. Please come back.
Yes,
When you can, and
For
show
sure.
off like a different section of your
Exactly.
your
Yeah, my Stephen King collection is in a completely different room. We can talk about that some other point. Yeah, I've got so many different sections. My set visit stuff is right over here. Yeah,
Amazing.
I got tons of stuff to show off.
Every time you come back, it's a different setup.
Exactly.
Like,
There you go.
wow. Where can everybody find you on social media to continue the conversation with you?
If you want to find me on Twitter, it's E. Eisenberg. Very, very simple. And to find all of my writing, I'm the head critic and, like I said, editor over at Cinema Blend. So, yeah, you can find all my work there.
Fantastic. And, of course, Jami.
Yay! Great show, guys. Eric, thanks for coming. You can check me out on Twitter and Instagram at Philbrick, and just my name on Facebook.
And for me, you can find me everywhere, Twitter, Instagram, all of that, at Wendy Lee Szany, just my name. Thank you so much for all of you for tuning in. And of course, we're just one of the few shows right here on the HCA network. So make sure you are liking this video, subscribe so you don't miss any other shows. We have upcoming Horrifically Horrifying. That is on, I think, Wednesday. Thursday, we have What to Stream. And of course, Friday, Trending in Hollywood. And with that said, you guys, thank you so much for tuning in. And we will see you next week right here on Pop Council. Bye, everyone. Oh, yeah.